Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, I'm going to show you a quick overview of all of the external buttons on the Fuji X-T4. Now, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. I'm new to the Fuji system and I'm sharing tips and tricks videos as I learn this system coming over from the Sony system. So one thing you will notice if you are a new Fuji user is the number of buttons on the camera, on the top, on the front, on the back. Coming from other systems, there's a lot more manual buttons on the Fuji system. So in this video, I'll show you what all these buttons do, help you learn the system, help you learn how to control your camera a little bit better. Now, what I will do in the description below, I will break it up into three parts. We will talk about the top buttons on the camera, we will talk about the front buttons on the camera, and also the back buttons on the camera. We won't go too deep into too much on the menu settings on the back screen. We'll do that in a different video. This one is just to focus on what the external buttons do on your Fuji camera. You can actually control quite a bit of your camera without diving into the menu systems, which is a bit different on a Fuji. So it can look a little bit kind of intimidating when you first pick up a Fuji camera. I guess the best thing to kind of equate it to would be like a retro old school film camera with manual controls. So you have a lot of manual functions you can control on the Fuji camera. So let's jump into it. And like I said it below, I will put in the description. We'll do the top buttons, the front buttons, the back buttons, and I will put timestamps down below. So if you are wanting to just jump to a certain section to figure out what a certain button actually does on your camera, you can jump down below, hit the timestamp, and skip through this video. All right, so just like its predecessors, the Fuji X-T4 does have a number of dials and button controls that let you perform different functions. So let's go through each one and we'll start from the front of the camera here. So this part will overview all of the buttons and features around the front of the camera. So the first one you'll see here is we'll do left from right. So screen left from right. If you're facing, looking at your camera, looking through the viewfinder, it's going to be right. But on the first side here, this is the front command dial. Now this dial, you can rotate it back and forth, and this can be set up by default if you have a lens on the camera that doesn't have a aperture ring. This will control the aperture, so you can adjust that as well on a lens that's not manual. It does also too is it lets you assign a function to press it. It will actually press down. And you can set up a lot of different functions in the menu. In the menu setup, you can set it up with basically to run anything, almost anything on the camera. ISO setting, if you're not having a lens that needs the aperture set, is one example. Another thing you'll see on the front here, this is the lamp. It's an autofocus illuminator. So this will shine if there is not enough ambient light for focusing. And this can actually also be set up on a video function to be a tally light. And what that means is it will actually, you can set it up when you're recording, it will actually flash, slowly flash to let you know, looking at the camera, that you are recording from that camera. Quite a handy function. Button just below here, this is the function 2 button. This is fully customizable. I have this one set up actually to do the eye autofocus on and off, which I kind of like to have on the camera. By default, it is set up for the drive setting, so it will the rate of your shutter. So you can adjust it to, if you're like, for example, holding down the shutter, it will do continuous, fast or slow shooting. But by hitting that button, that will take you to that menu to set that. Then now on the bottom part here, this button on the front, this is for, if you were to push it, it's going to release the lens, so you can change the lens on the camera. And the next switch here, this is the manual. This is it's another thing that's kind of unique to this camera, to the Fuji system, is a manual focusing switch. So there's 3 settings. Far left is manual, and what this will do is put your camera in full manual focus. This is the C is for continuous, And what that will do is for example, if you're trying to focus on moving subjects, that will continually focus and move with the subjects that's moving. And the last one here is single. So this will focus down. Basically what will happen is it will lock on after you acquire focus, as long as you have the the shutter button half pressed, and it will stay focus locked on that point. And last but not least, this one it unscrews. There's a little cap here, and this is a sync terminal. This is for connecting an external flash unit to the camera. So those are all the function buttons on the front of the Fuji X-T4. Next, let's go over the top function buttons of the Fuji X-T4. This is where you're going to actually see most of the buttons. And again, we'll start from left over to the right, looking down on the camera. So first button or knob you'll see on here is this one is for the ISO setting. And what this button does is it will rotate. In order to get it to rotate, by default, it's going to be on the A, which is automatic. So this will let the camera choose your ISO, but to be able to change it, you have to push the middle button, and then it lets you rotate. And you can move it back and forth. And it's got the different ISO settings. So, and then put it back to auto. To lock the wheel, you push that button back down. And just to the top of that is the, it's hard to kind of see. We'll show this when we show a bit more on the back, but there is a switch here that will, this switches the camera drive settings. But when we go to the back of the camera, I will show you that knob a bit better, because there is a few settings you can choose. On the left side here of the viewfinder, this is the diopter adjustment control. This will basically, when you're looking through the viewfinder, you can adjust the focus of the screen. So if your eyes, just for basically tailored to your individual eyesight, helps with focusing there, but nothing to do with the focusing of the camera. And on the right hand side here, this is the view mode button. A little bit hard to see, but a little button there. This switches between the electronic viewfinder and the LCD viewfinder, which is on the back of the screen. It can also be set, and by default what happens actually is if you put your eye up to the viewfinder, the electronic viewfinder, the back screen will turn off, and vice versa. So if you're taking your eye off, the back screen will turn on. If you put your eye up to the viewfinder, your viewfinder will turn on and your back screen will turn off. And then on the right hand side of the viewfinder here, a very similar button to the ISO, but this one controls the shutter speed, and it's the same way. You have to unlock it with the middle button. It right now is A for auto, and you can adjust the shutter speed from basically it'll tell you there from 0.008 of a second all the way up to, if you're the bulb setting, where you can hold that down. Now you can actually go into the menu function and set a control wheel to do the shutter speed as well, and that will actually give you some more options in terms of different shutter speeds. And there also is another rocker switch. We'll show you a bit more when it is in the back of the camera, but what this does is it switches the functions between still and movie back and forth. And there is one great feature about the Fuji X-T4 and the Fuji system is if you change a setting on, if you have it in your photo setting and you change any of the menu settings and camera settings, they will stay in place. When you switch it over to movie settings, you can have basically two separate settings for both. So it makes a great hybrid camera to use. Other button here, this is the function 1 button. So this can be set up, it's a customizable button as well. What some people kind of do here is to change the autofocus modes instead of using the rocker switch on the front. So, but this can be set up for basically for any type of function, which is great. In the next one here, this is the on off and the shutter release button. So pretty simple, rocker switch on and off, turns your camera on and off. To take a picture, pretty self-explanatory as well. If you push the shutter button halfway down, it will focus, and all the way down, it will take a picture. Now you can also, in your drive settings, which will go when we show the back of the camera, if you were to say, for example, have continuous shooting on and you were to hold the shutter button down, it will continuously take photographs. And the last button on the top here is the exposure compensation dial. So you can leave that to 0, and then you can also adjust it. It's exposure compensation up or down. And it's just a rotating file. This one's got quite a click to it, so there is no locking wheel, so you don't have to worry about bumping it. It takes a little bit of effort to actually get that changed, which is quite handy. It doesn't have to get bumped into different setting. And that is it. Other than that, for the side of the camera, I have these are the clips that come for the camera strap. It does come with a neck strap. I've added the Peak Design little grommet clips. If you want to see a video on the grip that I use, sorry, not the grip that I use, but the wrist strap that I use, you can see that I have another video talking about that. So there's one on each side. Okay, last but not least, let's take a review of the back buttons of all the camera. Again, we're going to go from the left side to the right side. So the first one you're going to see on the far left, this is the trash button. This is the button that you would use to, when you're reviewing photos, if you push that button, it will delete images. Next one besides this kind of goes hand in hand with the trash button. This is the review button. If you're pushing this button when the camera is on, what it will do is it will play back images, and you'll be able to see the images and videos of pictures and movies that you've taken on your camera. And now the next one here is the AF on button. This one is set up by a dedicated button for back button focusing. And to the right of that, this is another command dial. So this is a rotating dial. And you can actually have a number of, basically custom functions set up for this. You can change shutter speed with it. You can adjust the autofocus size. There's also a press button here, which can be set up. So there's lots of options that you can do and assign to these custom wheels. And now let's open the screen so you can take a look at that rotating screen. So the screen flips from the Fuji, and you can rotate it. So to rotate it back around is right there. And the next button here this is the Q menu button. So quick menu button, really handy system. What this does, I have another video on this, on customizing the Q button. So if you want to check out that on the channel, I will link that as well in the description. But basically what pressing this does is it pops up on the back screen. It will pop up a quick menu where you can have a touchscreen function to choose any of your kind of quick settings. And you can actually customize and choose a lot of your most used functions to show up in the quick menu. And just below that, this is the AEL button. So by default, holding this button, that will lock your exposure when you're composing a picture. But you can also set up in the custom functions is you can change this to a different functions, just like basically any of the buttons on the back or front of the Fuji camera. It gives you a great customizable options, but these are what the buttons by default. Just below this is a little joystick, and this kind of moves around. It's a little bit hard to see maybe on the camera, but it moves to all the positions and rotates around. This one is used to adjust the autofocus points. So for example, if your autofocus, you're looking at something is off, it's a little bit off on center, and you want to move your autofocus points over, it will move your autofocus point. You'll see it through the viewfinder, and it will move to where you want it on the screen. You can also have a setting to tap where the autofocus you wish to go, but by default, there's the joystick. And to reset, it also does press in as well. So if you're pressing it in, if you double press it in, it actually resets your focus point to the center, which is a handy function. Just below there, this is the menu and OK button. So right in the middle is the menu, OK? This is used to go through. If you push it, it takes you to the main menu and the setup menu of your camera. And it also lets you, if you're highlighted on a certain selection, if you hit OK, it makes that selection. It basically locks in that selection in your menus. Around the menu button is 4 more buttons. And these are basically the left, down, right, and up buttons. These are as well fully customizable for different functions, and you can have a press on each one be a different function of your camera. I have some of these set up to do different types of focusing, but you can decide how you want to do it in your camera. And this here is the display and back button, DSP, DISP back button. So this will basically changes the information displayed on your viewfinder. So if you were to be in the shooting mode and you're pushing this, it's going to show different information displays on the back of your viewfinder. When you're also working with in the menu system, if you're hitting this, will actually move you back in the menu functions. Okay, hope you found that video useful, showing you what buttons are what on a Fuji system. If you did have any other questions after seeing this video, if you wanted a certain thing answered or wanted to know more about the functions of a certain button, leave me a comment down below and I will answer it in an upcoming video. Again, subscribe to the channel. I'm sharing videos on switching over to the Fuji system, so kind of learning as we go here, and hopefully you'll join me along. If you like the video, as always, give it a thumbs up. And until my next video, you can check out this one. Thanks so much, everybody, and have a great day.